coming out of the dune, going all the way out to the water. And one dog actually got attacked. You may know about it, but and the other ones they weren't, but they had to scare them away. They seem to be more aggressive today by doing that. I've never heard of them being that aggressive.
Or that we've got the signs that say there's coyotes in the area, as well as signs that say, hey, there's trapping in the area, even though the traps are in places that people shouldn't be. We've had a couple of people's pets who have run into the dunes and been caught in those traps. It is imperative that residents and visitors understand that the leash law, they still have to have command of their dog when they're off leash. And if they let their dog run into the dunes, it may not be a trap, it may be a coyote, it may be a snake, it could be a lot of different things that live in there. So people need to avoid that. But if they see a certain area where coyotes might appear to be more aggressive or more open to walking towards people, if they'll just call that in, we can make sure that's documented on our report and we move our traps to those areas so that we can work on those specific areas.
What type of trap is that, Chief?
It's a leg trap, so it's not killing them. It
Right.
holds them there, and then we have to have the trapper come, and they are euthanized. They can't be transported somewhere else, so they're euthanized on site. But it is something that if your pet gets caught in it, our animal control officers have been trained by the trapper to release your pet from it, or a person, if a person wanders in there. Again, we just ask people not to go in there, but yes, we have the training to free them if they're caught in it.
Yeah, the danger being with your pet, if they get caught before the police could even get there, you could have a coyote or two.
Correct, because we are putting them in areas where we know it's active. We're basing it off of sightings, we're basing it off of areas where we're hearing noise or where we see a lot of activity with footprints and things that are fresh. So we are using fresh information to put them there. So if your dog gets caught in it, they're in a bad spot already.
The latest one I heard was around where the coyote came out of the dune, went all the way to the water level was at 34th. And then I also heard around 25th that the same thing kind of occurred.
I know we've done trapping around 25th before.
Yeah.
I'll check to see. We've been trying to move them around as those things get called into us. We just want to make sure people are calling it in. I know there's a lot of activity that goes on social media, but we really want to encourage residents to call it in, those sightings, so that we can make sure we're moving in the right areas.
I got a photo forwarded to me also over the weekend. It might have been the same one. John, did you see a photo of a coyote?
I don't know if I saw a photo.
This one was supposedly called in, and submitted the photo also, but it was somewhere around 34th to 36th.
Yeah.
Someone had taken a photo of it and standing right beside the walkover.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Gail Jordan.
I think Gail Jordan sent us.
She
Yeah,
sent that
yeah,
one,
Gail,
yeah.
Gail Jordan.
That was in addition to the one that I'm
Yeah,
talking
and she's at
Gotcha.
3607. So
Okay.
right there.
Of the seasonal parking pass for non-residents. This is something I think at the recommendation of PCI, eliminated out of our ordinance or the proposal, the new parking rates that we just adopted. And we said we'd come back and revisit that. So I know they're joined us too here. So Douglas, where do we want to
Yeah.
start with this?
Yeah, so that's correct. As you will recall, we have just modified our ordinances to really go to, and our rates to go to a daily rate. We do have in our pricing a rate for employees that work down there at a reduced rate, and then there is a weekly rate available, but it's pretty high cost. I think it's $65 or
$100.
$100 a week.
For a
yeah.
week.
Yeah, $100 a week.
So we pretty quickly heard from people that they would appreciate you all considering at least two things. One being a reduced rate for non-residents, but whatever you all would deem as local. So maybe tri-county area for a seasonal rate. And then second kind of request is an hourly rate after 4 p.m. The example that's been given is you come for dinner, you're only going to be there for 2 hours, and you end up paying the full day rate. So those are kind of the 2 points. As John has said, you all did that in conjunction and in discussions with PCI, they, I think, have, and they, you know, when you all talked about this, they had some projections as to what this would, how these changes would affect your revenue. And I don't know that they're fully aware of, because we don't know exactly what you all might be contemplating, but they're here to talk in terms of what changes could mean to your revenue. Additionally, they would be the ones handling the administration of any changes. So if we were to be talking about giving, you know, local communities passes, they would be the office dealing with that. So we'd want to hear their thoughts on how that administration would work. So,
I'd like to hear their thoughts on the revenue and the capabilities about how, that we have in order to implement both of those.
so Quinto and Melissa, you got the Public Safety Committee here, and I hope the mics are coming across decently, but they would like to get your thoughts on potential impact to revenue and operations on two fronts. First being the possibility of having an afternoon rate, so after 4 p.m. going to kind of an hourly rate. That would be the first one. And then secondly, a community pass for people wanting a seasonal pass, but that they come from, not residents obviously, but people close by, maybe the Tri-County area or maybe Charleston County area. So they just want to generally get your thoughts on those two issues, if you could provide them.
Yep. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate your time.
We can't hear.
Hold on just a second, Quinto, let me see.
Okay.
Do the TV remote, Emily. It should help you a little bit.
It's, I tell you what, Quinto, it's, the TV is not doing us any good, either way. So I'm gonna put you here so that your speaker is closer, hopefully you get picked up.
Is that as loud as you can get it?
That's as loud as it will go. All right, speak loud, Quinto, if you don't mind.
All right, good afternoon. Can you guys hear me clear?
I can.
Yep.
Good enough?
Can you?
Yeah, I must have it.
All right, good deal. Yeah, so we don't have a lot prepared here, but we can talk about numbers as it relates to what we were doing last year. If you give me a couple seconds here. Last year, as you remember, we had the hourly rates after 4 p.m. And this year, as we made those changes, we didn't make the change here to the end, to that second reading. So that approval didn't come through to the last few days of the month of March. But give me 2 seconds here, and I'll be able to reference some data for you guys.
Can you hear or you're?
Yeah. I'm not sure we need too much detailed information because we're doing these more as benefits to our community rather than revenue.
Well, I think their expectation is it would have an impact on your revenue. To make these changes would reduce your revenue.
$4 an hour after 4 p.m. is going to make a difference?
I think that's,
That's what he's about to tell us. I don't know.
Correct, exactly. Just as we look right now, just April, if you just look April 1st through April 7th, this year you guys are at $44,000 approximately. The same time last year, April 1st through 7th, you were at $34,000 approximately. So right there just shows a $10,000 difference alone with each of those new flat rates versus last year when you had an hourly rate after 4 p.m.
Quinto, any ability to kind of see that the timestamps on how many of those visits were after 4
How many entered the lot after 4?
and paid that
Yeah,
full?
I ran a little bit of raw data and just looked at, since we made those changes on March 28th to present day, it looks like we've had about 2,200 transactions that have occurred at lots A and lots B. And then out of that, if we look at just, I looked at the last couple of hours. One, if we looked at lot B, in our last 2 hours there, we had about 256 transactions. Again, that's in that period of March 28th to April 8th or April 7th, if you really cut off it last night.
So-
256.
So 250, can I just interrupt a minute, just to make sure I'm clear on these numbers? You're saying that we've had 2,200 total transactions, and of that, 256 have been after, or within the last couple of hours?
Okay, did they,
It within the app, so basically, yes, from
Okay.
6 PM to 8 PM, you've had 256 transactions at Lot B out of those roughly 2,200
Yeah.
transactions that have occurred since the rate change.
Can you back that up to 4 PM, Quinto? See what that number goes
so
to?
that's from 6 to 8 PM?
256 was 6 to 8.
Correct. I'll need to crunch a little bit more before I give you a specific number there. What I did was calculate from 6 to 8 PM, and then I also did from 7 to 8 PM, and then also did 7:30 to 8 PM.
Well, what was
Mhm.
7, okay, never mind. You
How-
did 6 to
yeah.
8, that's the better number. It's roughly 10-15% of the total.
Okay, how many of those were area residents, Isle of Palms residents?
He's
Don't
not,
have that.
he wouldn't collect.
You wouldn't collect those, so those are all off-island?
Well, it could be anybody, they don't distinguish between the two,
Right.
he's saying.
Yeah.
What?
He doesn't, they can't tell whether they're on island, off island.
Oh, you can't?
Yeah.
There's no revenue for on-island.
Correct. They're not quantifying residents. I don't think, that's correct, Quinto. They don't, if a resident comes in and leaves, they don't quantify that. 'Cause there's no revenue.
It would have ended up in this payment bucket. This is all.
Okay, this
It's
is,
all off island.
this is all off-island, that's what I meant, okay.
Yeah, they would not have, because it's not in the program, they also wouldn't be able to tell of those 2,200, how many are local and potentially, would be looking at this kind of regional pass.
They also wouldn't know if some of these in the afternoon too could be employees coming and going also, right?
I think you are capturing those, right, Quinto? If it's an employee, they would have a pass.
But do they all have a pass? Do all of them choose to have that $60 pass? Chief Cordette shaking his head no.
No, they typically would not. And most of the time in our past experience, the employer has bought some in the past. There's been a couple that would typically buy it on their own, but by no means most of them. I wouldn't say that's a majority.
So in most cases, if the employer's not subsidizing it, they may not be purchasing it all.
Correct.
Let me ask you something, Quinto. The technology-wise, if we wanted to say that starting at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whatever the time is, instead of doing a flat daily fee, we wanted to charge the hourly rate of $3 an hour. Do you have the technology to be able to even do that?
Yes, we could, that would be a flip of the switch with our mobile payment solution. What we would need to do some more extensive work would be with the Flowbird kiosk.
Yeah.
It would take a little bit more programming effort on the kiosk.
So in other words, what I'm saying is if anybody came in prior to 4 o'clock, they'd have to pay $25 during the summer hours or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If they came in after 4 o'clock, then they'd be charged $3 an hour. So if they stayed till 8, that'd be 4 hours times 3, you're talking about $12 instead of $25 for that.
Yeah.
For that period. So you have the technology to be able to do something like that?
Correct, we would, and again, to your point, the distinguishment would be there, you make that payment at 3:59 versus 4 o'clock.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do we have any sort of swag method that we could use to predict what the impact on revenue would be if that change was made?
Yeah, I mean, what we could do is come back to you guys and submit a report to Doug, and Chief, and then that way you guys could digest it, but we could use, I guess, depending on what you'd want us to isolate, whether it's, all payments this year or just during the time period of the change, we could definitely run some numbers and get you, impact there.
All right, I'd like to say that I think we're doing this to benefit our business people in the late afternoon and evening. We want to encourage people to come to Front Beach at that time. And I think if there is a lack of revenue, that we make it up in sales tax is what we do. It's something that's not going to be directly quantifiable.
I don't disagree. It'd still be nice to know what the number is, just so we, because of budgeting purposes and other things. I mean, we've got a number in there right now.
I think we
Just-
can-
I mean, if they can do it relatively easy, it'd be nice to know the number.
Yeah.
I agree, it'd be good to try to quantify the number, but I also agree with Jan in regards to, I think the positive impact that it could potentially have
Yeah.
on our businesses would be good for them and good for Roth Islanders who like to frequent our restaurants and shops as well after 4.
Any interest or thoughts on the, what's it called, validating, having, and I think Quinto, it was either you or Jack that talked about the ability to
Oh.
have a business validate that they went into a place of business, paid for something. Does that, and I mean, I don't know if that would be seen as actually driving additional business to them, that they're going there for a benefit and you kind of are knowing that they're,
Seems to me that would be putting a step on the businesses we wouldn't want to take.
Plus, I think by doing it this way, it solves it for everybody, right? By
Yeah.
doing just convert to the hourly. It is almost is like a validation.
Yeah.
But everybody gets it regardless if
Yeah.
you're in a
And
business or not.
you pretty much start to learn that you walk into a store and buy a candy bar, you get validated, and then you don't have to pay anybody, any time of day.
And then there's a second option, there's a second
I was a
thing
teenager
here
once.
too, though, is this annual pass. That doesn't,
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that,
what are your thoughts on that, Quinto, and kind of impact and?
Yeah, well, let me, and I hate to ask or answer a question with a question, but I think I've heard a couple of things from your group. Are y'all looking to address Charleston County or Tri-County? How are y'all looking to approach it?
I don't know if we thought.
To me, it would be driving distance, basically, which would be Tri-County. We have people that come down here to the beach, Berkeley County, Dorchester County, Charleston County. For me, it would be opening it up to that area there.
Okay, are we talking about the pass?
The pass.
Annual pass? Oh, okay, yes, I agree with you there.
Well, I don't know if we even limit it. I mean, if somebody spring for one of these passes, whatever amount we set, we put on that, go for it. I don't know that we even limit it to the
I
Tri-County.
think you guys know, if I go back to yesteryear, Melissa, you can chime in here, but I think we you guys previously had limited the amount of passes that we sold
I think
in
that's
that
what we do.
seasonal pass last year. I
Yeah.
think the total was 500 maybe, and even as we got to a certain threshold, I believe maybe 400, we started to slow down on those sales so that we could leave room for the employee demographic that had turnover in the business front.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was already some
Good point.
limitations there. I think we saw based on how the usage was last summer, that's where we came up with some of the recommendations in the meeting at the end of the year. What we could do is kind of look back. I don't know, Melissa, if you have any of that isolated on what the total number was that went to non-residents. But we could get back to you guys and analyze that for you. So once we separate out how many employees bought the pass last year, we can kind of give you a financial impact if we did that just for the non-residents that bought last year.
I think that'd be a good step.
That sounds good to me.
Well, wait a minute, residents don't need a season pass.
correct.
No,
Non-residents.
Non-resident, yeah.
Yeah, but everyone who buys a season pass should be a non-resident.
Correct.
Rick, I'm sorry, when I say non-resident, I mean non-City of Isle of Palms resident, but obviously to this conversation of either Charleston County or Tri-County, those would be non-residents to your community, but obviously they fit to a Tri-County jurisdiction or designation.
County
Okay,
resident,
off island,
local, but
regional.
island resident.
okay.
So how would this be,
Wording there.
I don't know, I mean, I think that's splitting hairs. I'm not sure we're going to have that many people out of the Tri-County area. Either way is fine with me on that.
but this is what we had last year. We had this ability last year, and specifically PCI recommended that we go away from it. So I don't know how this would be different from last year, what we did, and I guess you all are just rethinking potentially what you did this year in light of some of the feedback you've received, or would it be different than last year?
What was the fee last year?
What was it? I think it matched the county park, didn't it?
Like $60?
Last year, and that's where you see us this year, we keep the employee business rate is 60.
Yeah, so it's 60.
Yeah, but you can buy a weekly pass for 100, so this would have to be significantly higher than that this year. I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking probably in the 250 some range, otherwise it doesn't make sense.
Right, okay, so that's how we would differentiate it from last year. It'd be a
lot higher.
Absolutely,
higher rate.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, other question I had was, do you have a record of how many season pass holders use the lots on any given day? Does your data show that?
What our data would show is someone who is a pass holder. I could look back at our data and see if we're able to separate one type of pass holder from the other. We are by their license plate, but I'll need to see if there's a reporting that'll separate those folks out. We could probably tell you how many people signed up for the seasonal pass last year. I'll need to see if we can back into the usage of that pass.
Yeah, that's important, I think, because I'd rather limit the number of season pass holders that are using the lots on those lucrative weekends and give our business people the hourly rate at night. But we could always adjust the number of passes that are available based on what percentage do we want pass holders in the lot. In other words, if 10% of the lot are season pass holders, that's fine. If it's 50%, it's not. We've got too many passes out
Well, I
there.
think that, you talk about the issuance of the season passes.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's what we did. It sounds like that was previous. We limited it to 500.
yeah. But I mean, not all the pass holders are going to show up every day.
Yeah.
So you figure out what percentage of them, based on usage, show up at any time. So if it's 500 passes and the lot has 200 pass holders in it on the peak weekends, then maybe we want to cut back and only have fewer season passes. I don't know. I'd rather control that than that evening rate. That's my reading on it. We're going to have full lots either way to frequent our businesses
So do we
during the
want
day.
we want to get this information before we make any kind of recommendation to council, which would mean that we have a May 6th meeting. So we get it at May, take it to workshop in May and vote on it end of May. And that would be in time for the peak season here then,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is that a course of action everybody buys up on?
I think so, Chair.
Yeah.
All right.
Quinto, Melissa, you hear that? The idea would be May 6th, this committee would reconvene, and hopefully you all could have some data that they could look at for that meeting to develop next steps.
Correct. Loud and clear. And just to circle back, we want to get the financial impact of transactions after 4 p.m. at a flat rate versus an hourly rate. And I think I heard $3 is the rate we should look at there for the hourly rate.
Yeah,
Correct.
Yep, and then.
it's the same as the meters.
And then if you have data on usage by those, whatever it was, 400 to 500 seasonal passes last year, and then I think the difference in those passes would be, it would be at a significantly higher rate than last year. We'd keep the 100, is it 100 for,
It's 100 per week.
so it might be
250 or-
250 for the local seasonal pass.
Yeah, right now, the county part for their gold pass is what, $95 a year
Yeah,
for a general pass and $65, I think, for seniors. But, that's removed a little bit from from where the businesses are on Front Beach. But we'd be looking at a significantly higher number, I would think, for the lots that we have
okay.
out here at Front Beach.
Let's talk about how much we're willing, I think we could probably agree on a number for
Well,
starters.
why don't we wait and get the financial
Yeah.
impact and stuff from him, and we can just, I think.
But we've got to give him some direction. Do we want him to look at $200?
Well, he could run, he could run it at different levels.
I'd say run it at 200, 250.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, it has to be, I mean, we got right now a weekly pass at 100. I mean, it makes no sense unless there's a difference there. People are just gonna buy the
Right.
yearly pass,
Yeah.
annual pass.
yeah.
If it's, and that's always an option still to go to the county's gold pass, right? I mean,
Exactly.
people can
Yeah.
Always do that
Exactly.
until
I mean,
that's
if,
filled up, so.
yeah, if
Or
we're
you
going to
could
get,
park on Palm Boulevard free.
For free, all the way up and down Palm, or they have some of the avenues, so.
Exactly.
Down on Ocean, so there's other options that we have available as well. So I think you just run the numbers and that we asked about and come back and May 6th, and let's have a discussion around, make a recommendation that we can take the workshop in May.
okay, I've got a couple more questions that are sort of related to this, but not exactly. When a person gets a pass, is it tied to the vehicle with the license plate number? Is that how you identify? So we couldn't have somebody, a VRBO or something like that, buying a season pass and leaving it in the house for people to use? It would-
Correct.
It would have,
It is tied to the license plate number.
okay, well, that's good.
License plate, yes.
Okay, and the second one was, and I think this is something for you to look at, and maybe report back to us. I went on the website, and it's a very nice parking website, except it has very limited information about what our parking requirements and restrictions are right now. So check that out too. Because I put together a table of all the different variations in, what the parking rate is, and it's really hard to tell. We have 4 months a year when parking is free. I don't think people in Mount Pleasant recognize that. And another 5 months a year where parking is $10 an hour. All they hear is $25 an hour, and that's what they think it is all the time. So we need to be very clear on our website after we settle all of this. You could update it for the kind of information that's already been passed, and then add to it when we get along, but get farther along with this.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I think that's
Any
it
other
Anything else?
for me.
path forward?
Yep, I think that's good.
All right, the next item is miscellaneous business. Next meeting date is May 6th at 11 a.m.
Does that work for you?
Everybody Make it?
It does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jan?
Quinta, Melissa, 11 a.m., May 6th. If you guys could pencil that in.
All right, no further business.
All right. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.